Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick. So if you notice this bush next to me, it's all dried up and essentially going to fall off leaves. Same thing with that tree up there. You'll notice that there's snow on the ground. Well, that all gives or paints the picture for a dry environment. That, in addition to having your heaters kick on excessively hot air, your car heaters kicking out air without any humidity at all, it sets up for a problem with the nose, mostly excessive drying. The nose will do fine. It'll actually flood the hairs of the nose with water, which is essentially the snot that's forming, and then you'll have a runny nose, which is not good. So when you go from runny nose to dry nose to runny nose to dry nose, that's actually called vasomotor rhinitis. So we're going to talk about, I have a little bit of this discussion with the anatomy on my previous YouTube video, I think it's eustachian tube dysfunction, but more talks about the ears and stuff. I just wanted to talk about the value of snot. There is value to snot, and if you understand the physiology, maybe you'll get it more. But so this, I'm just using this because I don't have a broom, but this is my car scraper. And I like this because it has this base down below, which you can consider your nasal passage, or the lining of your nose. Then it has these hairs. Just think of this as a section of the lining of your nose. Coming off of the mucous membrane of the lining of the nose are these hairs. Now you can have big pieces of hair, like some guys, where the hair's coming out, and they have to trim those. But aside from those long hairs, you will have microscopic hairs. The entire nasal passage, not going into the sinuses, but the nasal passage here, in addition to the respiratory tree, is lined with cilia, tiny, tiny hairs. The ones in the chest, the respiratory tract, bronchus mostly, they all beat upward. So if there is an inhaled piece of soot, carbon, soil, even byproducts microscopically from burnt, from a bonfire, or a regular fire in the house, hopefully not, knock on wood, you will inhale that, and that's very damaging. It can actually be carcinogenic. So whenever the lungs capture that, they'll beat upward. They all beat upward so that they essentially come out. You get the sensation you have to cough, and you hawk out that piece of phlegm, and I'll tell you how it works in the nose. The nose doesn't beat like that. But if you think of this as the base of the nasal passage, and these are the hairs, say you inhale, you're following somebody with a diesel engine and you inhale a little bit of carbon. And the carbon might not be carcinogenic, but it's thick. And the carbon gets stuck to the lining of the nose, the hairs. So it's cool because the hairs have almost like a magnetic attraction to small particles. Kind of like your Swiffer. If you use a dust Swiffer, it magnetically picks up dust. It's just that they're diametrically opposed and they attract each other. I don't think that it's like steel and a magnet coming together, but they do have a magnetism so that the Swiffer picks up and holds on to the dust, and then you drop off the Swiffer somewhere else where you can get the dust. I think you'll still kick around dust, but if that's the way the hairs of the lining of the nose attract particles, then that's cool, because you'll protect the lining of the chest by capturing most of the particles, if my finger's a particle, in the nose. The thing is, after the nose magnetically captures this particle, it also secretes stuff from the lining that's different than the lungs, but it secretes stuff, viscous mucus. And the mucus travels up the hair, and if there happens to be a particle stuck, it'll engulf the particle. So if you've ever seen Fantastic Voyage with Raquel Welch, those of you who are baby boomers probably have seen it, but there's this one part where one of the scientists, is the bad guy. He's trying to run away with a ship, and then this white blood cell, this corpuscle comes and engulfs like the blob. Well, that's what happened. He dies. But that's what happens with the particles. The particles that get trapped by the magnetic attraction to the hairs of the nose, they get engulfed by mucus. And the mucus will engulf, capture, and hold it on the hairs. And then eventually, because you're having this airflow in and out, the mucus that was previously wet will dry up and shrivel. When the mucus dries up and shrivel, it captures that piece. It'll still hold on to the hair, but it captures that particle that could be carcinogenic, and it holds it, and it shrinks it almost like into a sarcophagus. It captures it. So when that captures it, and then it might make it easier with the right amount of force to blow out the particle, both the dried mucus and then the centered particle that was in there. So you blow it out. Here's the thing though, and this is why it's important to know how snot works. Once you capture that thing and you encapsulate it, you turn it into a mummy and it hangs on for dear life. It's probably dead or inert, but it hangs on to the hairs. If you don't blow your nose on a regular basis, it might just stay there. And you still have that potential irritation to the lining because it might be touching the lining. And if it touches the lining, it'll still cause an allergic reaction, whether it's dust or pet dander. And here's something interesting. If you are a dog owner, it might not be the poodle or the hypoallergenic pet's fur. It might actually be the saliva that the pet is licking on its paws and on its ears, on its hind parts, that comes in contact with you, that sits on the fur. So it might not be the dander, it might be the saliva from the animal or what it just ate that gets on its dander and makes you allergic to it. So if you have that contact, even on a dry piece of snot that's touching the mucous lining of the nose, you'll still have an allergic reaction, which is why you should blow your nose out on a regular basis, twice a day, clean up the nose. But the deal is that if you don't use liquid or saline to wet that little piece of encapsulated crap, then you're essentially trying to blow out a dry piece of encapsulated crap. And it might just hang on. It might shrink up to a very, very tiny spot, and it might just stay there for a long time, giving you an allergic reaction, itchy eyes and runny nose. Which runny nose is nice because you'll loosen that thing off, but itchy eyes, irritated sinuses, all of that's bad. So if you can get to the point where you blow that piece of dried encapsulated crap out of you by wetting it first. So that's why it's important to use a neti pot. A neti pot's where you put in one side and it comes out the other side, or you spray with saline. Like you can buy a little $6 Simply Saline spray, very gentle. It usually just touches the front part of the nose, doesn't go all the way to the back. Or you can cowboy it, put your hand under the faucet and sniff up a little bit and just circulate it out and then blow out that stuff. So I think it's nice because if I'm traveling in a dried area where I'm hiking and bringing my folks, if you want to clean out your nose, it's hard to just clean out your nose. Sometimes you can get water in there and do it more efficiently, so it's better. You have better sleep that night, you have less snoring, you have less allergic reaction. And especially if you're walking through a smoky area or a highly allergenic or a field of bear grass, that's really irritating. So it's really important to rinse out your nose twice a day. And look, there's no downside to this. All you have to do is rinse out your nose with saline, clean water. You're supposed to use bottled water because of one episode of sinus infection from amoeba that killed a guy in Louisiana, according to the CDC. And I question if they have amoeba in their water source that a guy used to clean out his nose, what about all the kids that are drinking the same water in the underprivileged areas of Louisiana? It doesn't make sense, but anyway, conspiracy theory against neti pots. So that's the basic premise for why I say you should use water to clean out the encapsulated crap that your nose hairs captured throughout the course of the day. So even if you blow your nose with a dry tissue, if you've ever seen a tissue after you go like this, it actually puts more dust into the air than anything. So wet your nose, rinse your nose twice a day with water, blow if you want to chase that, make sure all the water's out of you, perfect. And then most importantly, for those of you who use Atrovent nasal spray, which is awesome, it's like a non-addictive Afrin, or nasal crom, which is awesome, which is like over-the-counter Astelin, or if you use Astelin, Flonase, Nasonex, nasal crom, nasal quart, all those things, you got to rinse out the nose before you put the spray on. Otherwise, all you're going to do is spray the encapsulated snot that's stuck on the hairs, and that doesn't work as good. You got to clean out this stuff first, then you spray. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea about what to do for the winter. It also helps if you have less irritation to the nasal hairs. less swelling to the nasal hairs, less snoring at night. I didn't think about that. I mean, weight loss always helps with snoring, but so does cleaning out the nostrils. So if you have any questions on how you clean out the nostrils at night, please put them on the comments down below. I'll put a link to that eustachian tube dysfunction video I did. You can see the anatomy. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching up to this point. I'll see you at the next tutorial.